My name's Jason. I'm 21, live in a small town in Arizona, and work part-time at my friend's auto shop. It's not a fancy job or anything, but I like it. I fix stuff, hang out with cool people, and make just enough to cover rent, food, and gas, well, if I had a car right now. I just walk a lot. I actually like it. It clears my head. That day started like any other. I had a couple of oil changes and brake pad jobs, wiped my hands on the same dirty rag I always use, closed the shop with Tyler, and started my usual walk home. It was early evening sun just starting to dip. I had my earbuds in listening to some old school rock, just zoning out. I was cutting through a quieter neighborhood, one of those older ones where all the houses have big porches and fences that need painting. I passed by a house I'd seen a million times, always neat white curtains, some flowers on the windowsill. Never saw anyone go in or out, though. And then boom, the front door flew open. I flinched, ripped out one earbud. A woman stormed out, slamming the door behind her so hard the windows rattled. She was yelling something back into the house. I couldn't catch the words, but it sounded angry. Her voice cracked like she was holding back sobs and rage at the same time. She stepped off the porch fast and almost walked right into me. She looked broken, mascara running. Eyes swollen, her face red, her breathing fast like she'd been crying for hours, maybe days. We made eye contact for just a second. I froze. She froze too. Then I did the only thing that came to mind. "Are you okay?" I asked. She blinked fast, like she hadn't even noticed I was there until I spoke. "Please," she said, voice trembling, "just take me away from here. I can't do this anymore." I was stunned. Okay, where do you want to go?" "I don't know," she said, shaking her head. "Anywhere that's not here." I didn't have a car, but there was this little diner 2 blocks away, the kind of place with plastic booths and coffee that always tastes burnt but feels like home. I pointed toward it. "There's a place we can sit just over there. Let's walk. You can calm down, maybe get some water." She hesitated, then nodded, silent tears still rolling down her cheeks. We walked in silence. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know her name. When we got to the diner, it was almost empty. We took a booth in the corner. I asked if she wanted anything, coffee, food, something sweet. She shook her head. "Just water, please." I asked the waitress, who gave me a curious look. I shrugged, no idea what she thought was going on, but I didn't care. When the water came, the woman held the glass with both hands like she was freezing. She didn't drink it at first. She just stared at it. Then she whispered, "I don't know why life has to be like this." I didn't know what she meant, but I asked gently, "You want to talk about it?" She finally looked at me. Her eyes were so tired. "My boyfriend," she said. "He wants me to be perfect, always smiling. Oh, always calm, always patient. I gave everything I had, and it was never enough." I didn't interrupt, just let her speak. "He criticizes everything I do, the way I cook, the way I dress, the way I talk. And then when I say something, anything, he flips it like it's my fault. He makes me feel like I'm crazy." She paused, her voice cracking again. "Tonight he said I embarrass him, but he doesn't know why he's still with me." I felt something burn in my chest. I don't even know this woman, and yet I was angry for her. "I don't get it," she went on. "I loved him. I still do, but I'm exhausted. I don't feel like a person anymore." She finally drank her water. The glass shook in her hand. I said, "I'm really sorry. No one deserves to feel like that." She gave a small, bitter laugh. "Yeah, well, apparently I do." I shook my head. "No, you don't." She looked at me like she wasn't used to hearing that, like it didn't make sense. "I'm Jason," I said. "I work at a garage nearby. I'm not a therapist or anything, but if you ever need to talk again, you can call me." I pulled out a receipt from my pocket and scribbled my number on it. She looked at it, then at me. "You don't even know me." "Maybe not, but I know what it looks like when someone's hurting, and it's okay to lean on someone sometimes." She nodded slowly. I couldn't tell if she was going to cry again or finally breathe. She folded the receipt and put it in her purse. "Thanks," she said, for stopping for listening. We sat a few more minutes, then she said she was going to head to her parents' place for the night. I offered to walk her there, but she said she needed to be alone. So I watched her walk out into the night, heels and hand shoulders lighter than before. I didn't expect to see her again, honestly. I wasn't even sure I'd done anything that mattered. but I was wrong. It had been about 2 months since that night. Life didn't change much for me, still working at the garage, still walking home, still hanging out with the same group of guys every Friday night. We'd grab pizza, mess around with someone's old car blast music in the parking lot behind the shop, simple stuff, but I liked it. I didn't really think about her much after the first week, not in a bad way. I just figured maybe I was some random stop on a bad night she wanted to forget. People disappear like that all the time. I didn't even know her name. Then one Friday night, my phone buzzed. I glanced down unknown number. I almost didn't pick up, but something made me tap answer. Hello. There was silence, then a voice quiet, shaky. Jason. It took me a second. Yeah, it's me. From the diner that night. She didn't have to say more, I knew. Her voice was the same, soft, cracked at the edges. Hey, are you okay? She didn't answer right away. Then I heard her sniffle. No, I don't know what I'm doing. I stood up and walked a little away from the group. Where are you? There's a park by Fairview Drive. I'm on a bench near the back trail. I just needed to get out. I didn't know who else to call. I'll come. Stay there, okay? Just sit tight. I'm on my way. I told the guys I had to go emergency personal stuff. They gave me a look but didn't ask questions. I jogged the whole way. It wasn't far, maybe 10 minutes, but I didn't want her to leave. I didn't want her to feel alone again. When I got there, the park was quiet, almost empty. One street lamp flickered weakly over a bench near the woods. She was sitting there hugging her knees, her face turned toward the ground. I slowed down, catching my breath, then said softly, hey. She looked up. Her eyes were red again, but not fresh tears. She looked tired, worn down in a way that went deeper than one night. Sorry, she said, wiping her face. I shouldn't have called. Yes, you should have, I said, sitting down next to her. I'm glad you did. We sat in silence for a bit. Then she said I went back to him after that night. I told myself things would change, that he'd try, that maybe it was just stress. I didn't say anything, just listen. We had 2 good weeks. He apologized. We even went out for dinner once. He bought flowers. It felt real. She paused. Then it all went back, the same arguments, the same silent treatments. He said I was lucky to have someone like him, that nobody else would put up with me. She laughed bitterly, and I believed it for a while. I asked quietly, what happened tonight? I told him I was done, packed the bag, and left. I didn't even think, just drove to this park. I used to come here when I was a kid. It was the only place that felt safe. I nodded. You don't have to explain. She looked at me. You said I could call you. Probably didn't expect it to be months later. I'm in it. Doesn't matter how much time passed. She looked down at her hands. I feel stupid, like I should have known better. You're not stupid, I said. You're just human. She didn't respond right away. Then she asked, what were you doing tonight before I called? Bonfire with the guys. Nothing big. She smiled faintly. You got a good life, huh? I shrugged. It's simple, but yeah, I'm happy with it. She was quiet for a second, then she said, I wish I remembered what that felt like. I hesitated, then said, want to come meet them? She looked surprised. Your friends? Yeah, we're just hanging out. No pressure, no judgment, just people laughing about dumb stuff. You might like it. She hesitated. I don't know. You don't have to stay long, but I think it would do you good to just be around people who aren't trying to control you. Oh. She bit her lip, thinking, then slowly nodded. Okay, yeah, let's go. We walked back to Mason's house together. The fire was still going, the guys sitting in a circle on old camping chairs. When we stepped into the light, everyone turned. Yo, Jay, Tyler called out. You good? Yeah, I said, this is a friend. She's cool. They didn't question it. Mason handed her a bottle of water. Someone offered her a chair. She sat down next to me, a little nervous at first, but it faded fast. We talked, we laughed. She even roasted a marshmallow, even though she burned it. Someone passed her an aux cord, and she played some 2000s throwbacks. Everyone cheered. I watched her. For the first time, she looked like herself, not the girl on the porch, not the one crying in a diner, just her free light, alive. When it got late, I offered to walk her to wherever she was staying. She said she didn't want to go back to her place. She was crashing at her parents' house for now. It wasn't far. We walked in silence for a while. At her front steps, she turned to me. "Thank you," she said. "I needed this more than I even knew." I smiled. "Anytime." She leaned in and kissed me on the cheek, quick, soft, then pulled back and gave a small smile. "Good night, Jason." "Good night." And just like that, she disappeared behind the door. I stood there for a moment, then turned and walked back home. Not really sure what had just happened, but knowing for sure it mattered. The next few days after that felt different. I kept thinking about her, not in a romantic way, not yet just as someone I couldn't stop wondering about how she was doing, if she was okay, if she had really meant it when she said she was done with him. She hadn't texted or called, and I didn't want to pressure her, but I kept my phone close just in case. A week later, on a Thursday afternoon, I was under the hood of an old Honda Civic at the shop when I got a text. "Hey, it's me. I just wanted to say thank you again." That night meant more than you know. I wiped my hands on a rag and stared at the message for a second. Then I typed back, "I'm glad you're doing okay." "Better," she replied. "Still figuring things out, but I'm breathing easier." I smiled and slid the phone into my pocket. That was it. No heavy emotions, no drama, just a small message that said, "I'm healing." And after that, we started talking more often, a few messages every couple of days, then short calls. Sometimes she'd send a song she liked. Sometimes I'd tell her something dumb that happened at the shop. She finally told me her name, Emily. We didn't hang out again for a couple of weeks until one Saturday afternoon, I got a call while I was grabbing burgers with the guys. "Hey," she said, "are you doing anything tonight?" "Not really, what's up?" "I was thinking maybe I could tag along if you're hanging out with your friends again." I blinked. "Oh yeah, of course. You sure, yeah," she said, and I could hear the hesitation in her voice. "I just feel like I need to do something normal, be around people who don't make me feel like I'm shrinking." I told her where we'd be, Tyler's place this time, and offered to swing by and walk her there. She met me outside her parents' house, casual clothes, no makeup, hair tied back, and still somehow she looked more like herself than she ever had. "You ready?" I asked. She nodded and we walked. That night was nothing fancy. Some folding chairs in Tyler's backyard, a Bluetooth speaker, and a table full of snacks. The guys were the same as always, loud, sarcastic, but good-hearted. They didn't pry, didn't act weird, just welcomed her in like she'd always been there. And Emily, she lit up. I mean, really lit up. She laughed, not the polite kind, but the kind that makes your shoulders shake. She told stories, made jokes, even beat Mason at some stupid guessing game we always played. It was like someone had taken off a weight that had been pressing her down. At one point, I looked over and caught her just sitting back in her chair, watching everyone smiling to herself like she couldn't believe how okay she felt. We didn't talk much, just shared small glances here and there, but those glances said enough. Around midnight, people started heading out. Emily stayed close to me as we walked back. "That was fun," she said quietly. "I forgot what that felt like." "I'm glad you came," I said. "You were the life of the party." She smiled but didn't respond. When we reached her parents' place, she stopped at the steps. "I used to think happiness was something that had to be earned," she said suddenly, "like I had to prove myself worthy of it, be enough for someone else to be allowed to feel good." I didn't know what to say, so I just listened. But tonight I didn't have to do anything. I just was, and I felt enough. Her eyes met mine, and I saw something in them that wasn't sadness anymore. It wasn't pain, it was quiet, still present. Then she stepped forward and hugged me. Not a quick thank you hug, not awkward, a real one, warm, close, honest. When she pulled back, she didn't say anything. She just looked at me, smiled, and turned to go inside. "Hey," I said before she disappeared. "Same time next week." She turned back and grinned. "I'll think about it." She didn't come the next week. She had something with her mom. But the week after that she did, and the week after that too. Emily started becoming part of the group without forcing it. My friends liked her genuinely. She was easy to talk to, smart, funny in her own dry way. Sometimes we'd meet, just the two of us, walks, late-night ice cream runs, sitting in the back of her car, talking about stuff that didn't matter until it suddenly did. She told me about her childhood, about the first time she ever felt small, about how it took her years to realize she was allowed to take up space, I told her about my dad, who took off when I was 9, about how I never knew if I was enough either. And somewhere in those little conversations, something shifted. It wasn't friendship anymore. I felt it one night when we were sitting on the hood of her car, watching the sky turn orange over the hills. She leaned her head against my shoulder without asking, and I didn't move. I didn't want to move. She said, "You make me feel normal." I chuckled. I don't know if that's a compliment. "It is," she whispered, "the best kind." That night, when I walked her to the door, she paused, turned toward me and said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah. What would you do if I told you I think I'm falling for you?" I blinked then without saying anything. I stepped forward and kissed her. Nothing rushed, nothing planned, just real. When I pulled back, she looked at me for a long second, then smiled like something inside her finally made sense. "So that's a yes." "Yeah," I said, "pretty sure it is." We stood there a moment longer, not saying anything, and I realized this wasn't just one night anymore. It was the start of something real. The first few days after that kiss felt surreal. Not in a movie-like music playing in the background kind of way, more like everything suddenly got quieter, softer, like my thoughts stopped racing for once. Emily and I didn't define anything that night. There were no labels, no, "so what do we do now" talk. But from that point on, everything between us felt different. Warmer, closer, like the silence between texts meant something like her name lighting up my phone could shift my whole day. She didn't vanish after that. If anything, she became even more present. She'd stop by the garage just to bring me coffee. She'd text me a photo of her breakfast like it was the most important update in the world. She'd ask how my day was going and actually want to know. And I found myself doing the same. I started looking forward to the end of each shift, not because work was over, but because I knew she'd be waiting either in person or in my inbox or on the phone with that calm, steady voice of hers that somehow always made me feel like I was right where I needed to be. One night we were sitting in her parents' backyard. It was just the two of us, a couple of lawn chairs, in a sky full of stars that looked too perfect to be real. She was wearing one of my hoodies oversized on her sleeves halfway down her hands. She pulled her legs up into the chair and looked over at me. "I've been thinking," she said. "Dangerous," I teased. She rolled her eyes. "I'm serious." I looked at her. "Okay, what's up?" She hesitated like she wasn't sure if she wanted to let the words out. Then she said it. "I think I love you." I blinked. She didn't say it, dramatically didn't wait for a reaction. She just said it like she needed to get it out of her chest, and I swear, time paused for a second. I never had a girl say that to me first, and especially not someone like her. Someone who had walls, history pain behind her smile. "You don't have to say it back," she added quickly. I just, I needed to say it. I've been carrying it around for a few days now, and it's been driving me nuts. I didn't say anything right away, not because I didn't feel something I did. I just wasn't sure how to respond without messing it up. So instead of overthinking it, I stood up from my chair, walked over to her, and kissed her softly. Slowly, no performance, no fireworks, just me and her under the stars, the world somewhere far away. When I pulled back, she was smiling. "I guess that's a yes," she whispered. "Yeah," I said, "that's a yes." From that moment on, we were a couple, not officially on paper, but in every way that mattered. My friends knew. Her parents figured it out too. Nobody said much, and honestly, we didn't care. It wasn't about making announcements. It was about how we looked at each other when nobody was watching, how we laughed in sync, how the silences between us stopped feeling awkward and started feeling peaceful. One Sunday afternoon, we were sitting on the floor of her bedroom, eating cheap takeout and scrolling rental listings on her laptop. She looked at me and said, "Do you think we're rushing it?" "Maybe," I said, "but rushing towards something that feels right doesn't really scare me." She smiled. "Good, because I found a place." It was a small house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, one bedroom, tiny yard, old plumbing probably, but it was affordable, private, and more importantly, ours. Or at least it would be. We went to see it 2 days later. The paint was peeling and the carpet looked like it hadn't been replaced since the 90s. But Emily walked through it like she was already decorating the walls in her mind. "This could work," she said, standing in the middle of the empty living room. "I could be happy here." I watched her as she said it, how her eyes softened, how the tension in her shoulders faded, how she took a deep breath like it was the first one she'd taken all year. And I realized something. She wasn't running anymore. Not from her ex, not from herself, not from whatever pain she'd been dragging behind her for years. She was walking towards something new, something solid, and I was walking there with her. That night, we sat on the floor again, this time in my room. She was scrolling her phone while I was flipping through a notebook I used to jot down dumb ideas in. She looked up at me and said, "Do you ever think about how we met?" I smirked. "Every time I walk past that street." She nodded. "I still hear the door slam in my head sometimes. That version of me, I barely recognize her now." I leaned back against the wall. "She's still part of you." "Yeah," she said, "but she's not the only part anymore." There was something in the way she said that, a confidence, a calm that was when it hit me. This whole thing, this connection, this love, whatever it wasn't about rescuing her or filling some void. She didn't need saving. She just needed someone to see her, truly see her, and somehow that someone turned out to be me. We stayed like that for a long time, no music, no background noise, just her head resting on my shoulder and the quiet hum of life finally settling. We signed the lease 2 weeks later. It wasn't some big dramatic moment, no confetti, no champagne, no moving in together, Instagram posts, just me. Emily, a sleepy realtor with too many keys and a bunch of paperwork with too many pages. We held hands when we signed. She squeezed mine tighter than usual. The first night in the new place felt like camping. We didn't have a couch yet, didn't even have a bed frame, just a mattress on the floor, a single lamp in the corner, and our backpacks. We ordered pizza and ate it sitting on a blanket we spread out in the middle of the living room. "This is so stupid," Emily laughed, chewing her second slice. "And I love it." "It's perfect," I said, and I meant it. That first week was chaos. We tried building a dresser and ended up with half a drawer missing. The shower had terrible water pressure. The stove made a weird buzzing sound. And one night, the ceiling fan in the bedroom just literally crashed onto the floor while we were brushing our teeth. Emily screamed. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on toothpaste. We slept with the window open that night, just in case the lights decided to explode too. But none of it mattered because we were building something that was ours, messy, imperfect, but real. Her parents visited once to drop off a box of old dishes. Her mom hugged me longer than expected and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on her." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. My boss at the garage offered me a few more hours per week. I took them. We didn't need much, just enough to cover rent, groceries, and the occasional late-night ice cream run that Emily insisted on. One night, about a month after we moved in, we were sitting on the front steps. It was a quiet evening, the kind where nothing big happens, but something small settles inside you. Emily leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "I still think about that day." "What day?" "The day you were just walking by when I opened the door." I smiled. "Yeah, that was wild." "I was a mess," she said. "I didn't even know who you were, and yet I asked you to take me away." "You didn't ask me," I said. "You begged me." She laughed. "True." Then she turned serious. "Sometimes I think about what would have happened if you just kept walking." I looked at her, but I didn't. She nodded, eyes fixed on the sky. "I didn't know people like you existed, Jason, people who just show up and stay." I stayed quiet because I could have said something cheesy or deep or whatever, but the truth was I didn't stay for the drama or the fairy tale ending. I stayed because being with her made sense even when it didn't. We sat there a while watching the last bit of daylight fade. Later that night, while brushing our teeth in that same bathroom where the ceiling fan used to hang, Emily said, "You think we'll be okay?" I looked at her reflection in the mirror, her hair tied up, cheeks flushed from the warm water, eyes calm. "Yeah," I said, "I think we already are." She didn't say anything, just smiled, that small, honest kind of smile I hadn't seen on her face when we first met. That night, we climbed into a bed, still just a mattress on the floor, and lay in silence, her head on my chest, fingers tracing slow circles on my arm. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if the stove would stop buzzing, or if the ceiling would drop something else on us. I didn't know how long we'd stay in that house, or whether we'd end up with kids, or if the world would throw more storms at us. But I knew this Emily wasn't that girl at the door anymore, and I wasn't just a guy walking past. We had found something not perfect, not magical, but something worth waking up for. And for two people who weren't looking for anything, we ended up finding everything. The story of Jason and Emily offers a deeply moving lesson. A single moment of compassion can spark a transformative connection that heals and rebuilds. Jason, a young mechanic, didn't hesitate to stop for Emily, a stranger in distress, offering her a safe space to breathe amidst her pain. His quiet presence, listening without judgment, staying without expectation, shows that true kindness doesn't need grand gestures. It thrives in simple acts of showing up. Emily's journey from a toxic relationship to finding love in a home with Jason reminds us that healing begins when we're seen for who we are, not who we're forced to be. Their slow, honest bond, built on shared laughter, late-night talks, and mutual vulnerability, teaches us that love grows in the spaces where we feel enough just as we are. Jason's choice to invite Emily into his world and her courage to trust again inspire us to embrace the unexpected encounters that can change our lives. This story urges us to pause for those in need, to offer a hand or a heart, because sometimes a small act of care can lead to a lifetime of meaning. So be someone's safe harbor. You never know where it might lead. Have you ever had a moment of kindness that changed your path? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If this touched your heart, subscribe and join our community for more stories of hope and connection. Let's keep inspiring each other to make a difference.